Hey, what's up, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a video game review. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Metroid Samus Returns for the Nintendo 3DS, which comes with a very cool other cover. If you flip it over, you get basically the cover for the original Metroid Return to Samus from the original Game Boy back in 1991. God, I feel old right now. I really feel old. So, alright, but anyway, the Metroid series has a series that, while it's not nearly as big or on the same level as, say, like Mario is, or recently, or Zelda, or even Pokemon for that matter, though, it still is held with high regards, and it still has a good amount of fan base, though. Just not that high of a fan base, though. For me, though, I never really got into the Metroid series until after Super Metroid came out. I never played the first one before until, like Metroid Zero Mission that was released on the Game Boy Advance. A little bit of Metroid 2 Return Samus, but for me the big one was Super Metroid, though, and that was like a couple of years later after the game has come out, and that game is held with high regards, though. It's one of, and I will admit, it's one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. But the series, after Super Metroid, the series kind of laid low for a bit, though, and never made an appearance on the Nintendo 64, or even to some extent the Game Boy Color, outside of maybe an appearance that Samus has made in the Smash Brothers games, though. It wasn't until 2002 when Metroid made its return with the release of Metroid Prime, developed by a brand new studio at the time called Retro Studio, and that game's held with a lot of high regards. Not to mention a sequel, Echoes and Corruption on the Nintendo Wii, which to me the Metroid Prime series remains one of my personal favorite in the Metroid series, though. Unfortunately, the series has also had its bad entries as well. While I don't think it's nearly as bad as a lot of people say it is, Metroid Other M isn't exactly held with high regards for a lot of people, though, as some people don't like how Samus was portrayed in that game. And then, of course, you had Metroid Federation Force, which was basically a multiplayer-only game, and not everybody was happy with that game. Along with, not to mention, the character design as well, and I can see why a lot of people were upset with that. I didn't play that game, though, and it was very unfortunate because it was developed by Next Level Games that has produced some pretty good games on the Nintendo system. Mario Striker and Mario Striker Charge, both for the GameCube and the Wii, those are good games as well. Punch-Out for the Wii was also good. Would love to see another entry from Next Level Games, Nintendo. And, of course, Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon as well. Unfortunately, this one did not sit well with a lot of people. What also didn't help was Nintendo disabling the likes and dislikes as well. So, much to my surprise this year at E3, when we learned that 2 Metroid games are coming. One, the big announcement, though, of Metroid Prime 4 in development, although not being developed by Retro Studio, which has some people uneasy about that, but I'll give it benefit of the doubt to see how the development team handles that one. Until then, the other one, Metroid Samus Returns for the Nintendo 3DS, which is basically a port of the original. A port, though, of Metroid 2 Return Samus, but with some upgrades and so on. So how does the game, or not say port, a remake, though. So how does the game hold up? Well, after playing with it for about 2 weeks, though, I will say I think it is a very well done remake, and being developed by Mercury System that did the surprisingly good Castlevania game they did on the Nintendo 3DS. So why don't we get started with the pros and the cons. So, the first one I want to talk about is the visuals, and I will say the visuals are definitely an improvement, though, from a little bit from the Castlevania game, but hold up really nice. I also like some of the cutscenes in the game. They sort of give it a little bit of that cinematic feel, but it's still like a 2D game, but with like a 3D look to it as well. So Definitely love the visuals. The next one, of course, is the sound and music, though. One of the things that Metroid is famous for is that eerie, like you're alone in this ruined alien world with that sound and the music, though. And this one still contains that mood and atmosphere that the series is well known for. So I'm glad that they're able to maintain that. And finally, last but not least, though, I will say the game has solid gameplay mechanics with some new ones, though. It follows the tried and true formula that the 2D Metroid games are for, but it also adds a little bit of a twist. One of those is now you have like a aim is like you can aim, like if you hold down the L button on your Nintendo 3DS, you can automatically aim at different enemies. We would stand still though, but it's sort of interesting how you could do that and all. It's in the gameplay footage, though. I'll have a link in the description. Plus, some new features such as the transportation or teleportation in the game, where you can sort of, rather than backtrack constantly, this sort of helps cut down some of the time. To basically, this new power-up called Aeons, where you can use it ranging from, and I've only found only 2 power-ups for it for now. A shield that can make you go through certain enemies and everything, plus also a new feature that can like open up parts of a map, though. So far I haven't seen any places where it opens up maps for an entire area, so this comes in a bit handy though. Plus the new parry system, where just before an enemy attacks you, if you could strike them by pressing the X button, which leaves them completely dizzy and all, and that gives you a chance to attack them with your blaster or your missiles and everything. So it's a solid gameplay mechanics, and it offers up some new things though, and it would be very interesting to see how those things hold up very well. So, but overall, solid gameplay mechanics though. Okay, we're going to take a bit of a break. When we come back, I'm going to get to the cons. I really only have one con for this one, so take a bit of a break and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with the second part of my video game review of Metroid Samus Returns for the Nintendo 3DS. And as far as cons goes for this game, I only have basically just one. Excuse me. Really only one con for this, and that is that the controls in the game there is somewhat of a learning curve with it, and a lot of it has to do with the parry system, if I'm saying it named correctly, where you can hit an enemy just before they attack you, to the fact that you're controlling Samus in this 2D environment with like the analog stick or the control slider on your Nintendo 3DS. Now, it's not necessarily bad or anything like that though, but it does take some getting used to this, and maybe it's the fact that maybe it's just me, or maybe it's the fact that I grew up at a time when if you play a 2D game, you use the control pad. So the idea of using the analog stick does take a bit getting used to with it though, but eventually once I started to figure out how things worked and operate, everything started to click and everything started to work just fine. So the controls aren't necessarily bad in this game. They're not by any chance terrible or anything like that. They just take some getting used to it though, and there is a little bit of a learning curve, so it might be difficult for some people though. It was at first for me, but eventually I was able to understand how the controls and the mechanics work and so on. So, but after a while, I eventually started to enjoy the game. So, the controls aren't terrible, don't get me wrong. There's just a bit of a learning curve, and for some it might be difficult, and for some it's going to have to be a bit of patience to understand the controls and everything like that. So, not terrible controls, just a bit of a learning curve towards it. Overall, Metroid Samus Returns is still a fun game. It brings Samus, after the disappointment that was Other M and Federation Force, it brings the series back to what people like about it, the whole exploration, to basically the mood and everything else about it, Samus alone in this alien world and so on. The visuals of the game look nice and everything, and the gameplay is still solid, even as I said in the cons, there's a bit of a learning curve of it though. So if you want to return to the the old school Metroid style of the games, not the ones in Other M or Federation Force, then you'll definitely want to pick this up though. And the fact that they remade the second one, which isn't held as high regards as the other ones though, not bad. It's sort of interesting that that they did that, and it would be also very interesting to see if any of the features used in Samus Returns excuse me, makes its way into Metroid Prime 4 or in other future Metroid games down the road. But overall, Samus Returns, good game, worth a pickup if you have a Nintendo 3DS though. Okay, this concludes my video review of Metroid Samus Returns from the Nintendo 3DS. And again, these are my opinion, but what are yours? Have you picked up Metroid Samus Returns yet? Are you enjoying the game? Are you not enjoying the game? Do you think the controls have a bit of a learning curve? Do you think that might turn some people off? Or do you think it won't turn anyone off at all? Do you agree with my review? Do you disagree with my review? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it. Excuse me. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you would like, if you want to. If you do, that's great and that's fine and all. Links will be in the description. It could either be through Patreon or PayPal me. And anyway, this concludes this video of my video game review of Metroid Samus Returns. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that will be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye.